I think we are now going to segue into the closing segment. It's been a really good day, and Fifi, you're going to be leading the way on this. So over to you.
So we have got our representatives from UNIDO and from Sida who have put together this platform for us. Mattias, hello, there he is. Larsen from UNIDO, and Patrik.
On the resilience and the need to have flexibility built into both the institutional and the individual angle of the approach and the various trainings that we are working with. And the need to have flexibility built into both the institutional and the individual angle of the approach and various trainings that we are working with.
We'll let the computer have its say. That's that artificial intelligence doing its own thing. And I think also just circling back to a point that Martin made, to say that in the event whereby, you know, the machine that you've programmed, the electric car, does its thing and it might not necessarily be doing the right thing at the time, the importance of human intervention just to put it back on a track. But gentlemen, to the both of you, and particularly Mattias, I know that you have been so hands-on in the scripting of everything that went on today. And I'd like to also, you know, hopefully ask that everything did go your way, and perhaps what you're looking forward to tomorrow in terms of perhaps a message that wasn't quite shared. Is Mattias still there with us?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, there was a repetition in the loop. I hear you now. Sorry, I think I missed the question. But if you're asking for, that was why I was a little bit short before. There was a technical issue. No, my takeaways from today is obviously that this has been an amazing set of sessions. I'm also very, you know, even though I've been directly involved with the panels and you know, meeting all the people who have been kind enough to spend their time and discussing these issues. And I've known what they would be talking about. I'm still, you know, surprised at how relevant the discussions have been. So my notebook is full of things that I've noted down for us at LKDF and at UNIDO, things that we should be thinking about when we think about developing new projects, what actions that we should be working at, providing, etc. So it's been a very, very interesting day. I mean, some things that stood out to me were that I think it was from the colleagues from ETF and OECD in the first session. They mentioned that, you know, during COVID, both the provision and the participation in vocational training went down, you know, a lot, like to a level it was at 10 years ago. So why is that? You know, my humble interpretation is that the systems were not resilient enough to be able to provide that training, or even, well, it wasn't only the provision, but it was also the participation. But there was something to learn from that, and that example shows that we need to think about resilience in terms of skills development. So I have a long list of other things that came up today that are really relevant. Yeah, but maybe that would be it for now.
Yes, I have a question for you, Mattias. Why did UNIDO decide to talk about resilience specifically in the skills development context?
Yeah. So clearly, you know, we're now in a different situation that we were in a couple of years ago, obviously, because of, and that's been discussed already today, but because of climate change and then, you know, COVID, obviously, and now with the conflict and the energy and economic and social crisis that we are seeing. So all that uncertainty is, you know, it's affecting us all on different levels, and obviously it affects skills development as well. And I think, you know, already these first sessions today have brought that out, how important it is to think about resilience in skills development. So we started thinking about that quite early. We realized that this is an important issue to be discussed. And of course, from LKDF, it's part of what we are doing, that we promote discussion about important themes in the skills development area, but also that we help, I guess, facilitate partnerships. So this is one way to bring people together, to make a first connection for people who haven't met before. And then also another thing that we do is, of course, that we support development of projects that try to address some of these issues that we are discussing today.
Right, oh, I'm so sorry. Please go ahead.
No, and you know, I'm certainly not an expert with any answers, but I do have the privilege of working in the LKDF team to be able to ask questions. And then, of course, it's wonderful to take part in an event like this, where there are actually some answers and some really interesting discussions about some of the different dimensions of the questions.
No doubt. I personally have learned quite a bit myself. And Patrik, perhaps you can also speak to why you think this is such an important topic from your perspective at Sida.
Yeah, and I would say +1 to everything Mattias said. I agree to everything. It is an increasingly complex world, and we have to be thinking about that in everything we do, of course, including the educational and capacity building efforts that we do. I would like to add perhaps one perspective to that, which comes from the multidimensional poverty analysis that lies at the bottom of Sida's work. Because, of course, we are challenged in so many different ways through the complexity of the world today and how it's changing. We can talk about the lack of power and the access to voice and resources. We can talk about lack of human security and so on. But at the bottom of that perspective is the access to also economic development. And economic development is the key for us to access so many other parts of our rights and our ability to build more enriching and freer life. So that's why having the ability to have a resilient approach to your training and to the institutions that we are building and to the partnerships becomes essential.
Yeah. All right. And perhaps one more question would be your message to the donor community, social investors, and the private sector. What would you like to say to them in the context of the different pathways that we've discussed today to creating a more resilient institutions, and of course, workers?
If I would take okay, if I start, Mattias?
Yes, I'd love to hear from you both. Maybe you can go first.
I would say that this is a very important question because I think here resilience spells partnership because it's really in the partnership between the private sector, various parts of the public sector, civil society, and those of us that work in the development in institutions that have a particular role for development that actually spells development cooperation. It's only in that network or in that partnership that we can work in a resilient way. Sometimes one of us will have a challenge and we'll have to lean on someone else to carry a bigger burden. We'll have different competences and perspectives as we come into meetings such as this and to concrete partnerships around concrete educational and vocational training initiatives, and building around that partnership, I think is extremely important. We look at the development community as such, development partners, if you like. we only have a tiny bit of the answer to the development challenges in the world. Somebody has made calculations, I would say optimistically, coming up with some 10% of the solution if you look financially. So it's very clear that this can only be approached in partnerships with different actors, and that's where the LKDF approach and the public-private development partnerships provides a very, very useful platform that can leverage additional engagement and funding for the development issues at hand.
And I think that what has come out quite strongly throughout the day is how useful this platform has been from the various speakers that have been able to attend, and even those that have been, behind the scenes. Mattias, just your message as UNIDO to the donor community, and perhaps the importance of resilience, actually spelling partnerships.
Yeah, I would also say the same thing. Partnerships for two reasons, I guess. One is that exactly what Patrik was saying, that it takes a lot of, and we were hearing this before. Of course, it will require resources, and I think one point is also to be resilient. I think resilience actually will require a little bit more resources because it means that you will have to be able to adapt. You have to have extra or redundant functions, or let's say you're a TVET institution, you have to invest in knowing and having some foresight, and that's all on different levels added costs. So it will take more resources, and the only way to manage to do that is by doing it in partnerships between public and private institutions, whether it's companies or donors or foundations or whatever. And I think the other thing is what's still the main challenge in skills development, that there is this mismatch between what the skills that people have when they graduate from training systems and what is in demand in labor markets, or what employers are in need of. So that's the only way to bridge that mismatch or that skills gap is to work together between private and public sectors to jointly try to address that challenge. And that's the main thing behind LKDF. That's the main reason for why we are working the way we are. We're trying to address that challenge of the skills mismatch by bringing the private and public sector together in direct activities in skills development projects.
Yeah. Because, Mattias, we've been working together for some time now. I've been working with the organization a bit before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now at this juncture that we're at. And I think the work that the LKDF has been doing has been quite notable in talking about the green revolution. Now we're talking about the skills revolution, and also there was the digital revolution. But in cementing these partnerships, or perhaps even trying to strengthen these partnerships that you're talking about, particularly between the private sector and institutions, in trying to address what it looks like is a growing skills gap pool. In your experience, in your own personal experience, what have you found the outcomes of trying to strengthen those partnerships to be, and what have you found some of the challenges, I suppose, in trying to strengthen these partnerships? And Patrik, feel free to also talk from Sida's perspective as well, if you want to add in.
Yeah, that's if you go into detail, that becomes a big question, because obviously partnerships is about finding ways to working together. It becomes a relationship. You have to be able to build trust, and you have to understand what the interests are of the different partners, and how to make sure that those are aligned, that you're not unintentionally working against the interest of each other. that it takes a lot of work, but there are methods and there is experience in how to do that, and it's possible, and it leads to results.
So trust being quite a key important element there in ensuring that hands that do shake stick to the deal. Patrik, just your take on strengthening partnerships between the two sectors, as you said. I mean, you reached out to the donor community, mentioned the importance of such partnerships and building resilience. In your line of work and in your experience, what have you found to be some of the stumbling blocks right now in forging and strengthening such partnerships in this environment?
I think what we're seeing, and unfortunately we might see increasingly, is fragmentation and lack of trust. We are seeing a process where trends of globalization are weakening, which implies, among other things, multiple standards in areas where we need common standards. Multiple norms where we had come a long way on agreeing on common norms. We're seeing trends. I wouldn't say we're seeing a decisive pattern, but we're seeing trends of lack of international open trade coming along. And all of these issues, they not only challenge our current fiber of trust and partnerships, but also ask questions about how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we reinvent and restructure for new partnerships within the contexts that we are faced with? So I think that is my take, not to at any moment stay content with what we have. Again, leaning into the discourse of resilience, if you like, really understanding that we need to reshape and reinvigorate our partnerships.
Reset, rebuild, and reconfigure. I think that was like the buzz phrase of the COVID pandemic. But gentlemen, thanks so much to the both of you, Mattias, Larsen, UNIDO, and Patrik Stålgren.
Very good.
At Sida. And Wole, I suppose that wraps up day one.
Okay, there you go. All right, so hopefully you can hear me now. Yes, I think it's been great so far. So part one done. Part two coming up tomorrow. I think it will be useful to just preview that for everyone. Thank you again for joining us. So we start again at 10 CEST tomorrow. I would say tomorrow is a combination of inspiration and more education, because at the first part of the day, we would be getting some really interesting insights from those who are actually walking the talk, engaging people to really build the resilience in skills. We'll be hearing the story of Nelly from Kenya. You also, Fifi, of course, will be moderating a fireside chat with some accomplished people who will be helping us appreciate more the things that we need that cause all that we're talking about to work. And I'll also be engaging some institutions. You could call it like a storytelling segment. Oh, sorry, not really storytelling, but more like a showcase segment, where we'll be hearing about resilience in developing countries. So lots of stories to hear there. You don't want to miss all of it. So as I mentioned, join us again at 10 CEST tomorrow.
Yeah, same time, same place. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on where you are leaving us from here. Today, we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Goodbye.
See you tomorrow.
Cheers.